Welcome to this Introducing Oxbridge webinar. I'm Kathryn Singleton and I'm the Schools Liaison Officer at St Catharine's College, part of the University of Cambridge, and I will be hosting this webinar today with my colleague.
Hello, I'm Joe. I'm the Schools Officer at Brasenose College, which is one of the colleges in Oxford.
Yep, so this webinar today is hosted by the two colleges. We'll be introducing you to the concept of Oxbridge and also chatting about the application process and addressing some misconceptions perhaps about the two universities. We've got, more importantly than Joe and I, lots of student helpers here with us today to chip in with their own personal experiences. So today we're going to be using the Q&A function. And that's going to allow you to ask all of your questions today. So there are lots of people in attendance, which means that we probably won't be able to answer every single one of your questions, but you can see the questions that have been asked in the Q&A, and we ask you to upvote them if you really want that question to be answered, and then we'll make sure that we answer that one aloud at the end of the session. But before we start our webinar, I'll ask all of our student helpers to introduce themselves. So if we go perhaps in alphabetical order, so if you all want to introduce yourselves and what subject you do, what year you're in, and which of the two colleges you're at.
Hi, I'm Aisha. I'm a third year human, social and political scientist at St Catharine's.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I do maths at Brasenose and I'm a fresher.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a second year biologist at Brasenose.
Hi, I'm Jackson. I'm a first year medicine student at Brasenose.
Hi, I'm Kareem. I'm a third year English student at Katz.
Hi, I'm Kazal. I'm a second year engineer at St Catharine's.
Hi, I'm Lokesh. I'm a fourth year physics and philosophy student at Brasenose.
Hi, I'm May. I'm a third year veterinary student at St Catharine's.
Thanks very much. That's always the hardest part, working out if we can all introduce ourselves alphabetically. So yeah, our student helpers are going to be chipping in with their experiences of Oxford and Cambridge and the application process throughout this session. And Joe and I are going to introduce you to the two universities. And at the end, there'll be plenty of time for us to be answering lots of the questions that are coming in today.
Thanks. Yeah, those introductions were so like university challenges. Brilliant. All right, so what I thought I'd do is just set the scene briefly with this beautiful slide that we're starting with. I think that if you walk around Oxford or Cambridge, which some of you might have done, you know, it does look pretty magical. And you can see that picture on the left, which is in Oxford, which is called the Radcliffe Camera, part of the Central Library. It is really, you know, it does remind a lot of people of Hogwarts. It's like Diagon Alley a little bit, some of the shops. And you walk around and it does maybe lead you to believe that we're kind of old-fashioned and we're ancient and stuck in the past, maybe. And we've been around for 800 years, so you can understand that feeling. But actually, the thing about Oxford and Cambridge, I think, is that we're pretty modern, pretty progressive, and pretty forward-thinking. So I just wanted to set the scene along those lines, really. So we do have a global reputation, so we tend to rank in the top 5 universities in the world, which is amazing, really. Depending on which league table, I always believe the league table that has Oxford as the highest. So we're kind of, lots of people know about us. I think the students, let's see if they nod. I think the work is pretty challenging. So the undergraduate work is, you know, does keep you occupied and it's stimulating. The key is to pick a subject that you're passionate about, and then hopefully it will be a challenge, but not a chore. But yeah, so we do get our undergraduates to really involve themselves in their degrees. I think the teaching is pretty amazing. The tutors are incredible people. So we have hundreds and hundreds of tutors. Some of them are pretty famous. So Tim Berners-Lee works at Oxford. Mary Beard is a famous historian. She works at Cambridge. And then there's just an army of other less well-known academics, but in their field, like they're top. You know, they'll write the books that you end up reading on the reading list, and then some of them will teach you as well. So that's pretty exciting. some people worry about career prospects and they think, well, Oxford and Cambridge are going to give you like an amazing education, but it'll just be useless. You won't be able to apply them to a job afterwards. But that's definitely not the case. If you look at the statistics, students are really employable and they go off and do incredible vocations afterwards. And it doesn't matter too much what degree they've chosen. So you might be thinking, well, your medicine and law, maybe they're a bit more practical and you can apply those, but classics and languages and English and stuff like that, they won't lead to a job. But that's not true looking at statistics. And we do actually have, both universities have a really good career service, which you can join for life, basically, if you're a student at Oxford and Cambridge, and they'll always help you if you want to change careers or something. So I think that's pretty good. Yeah, and then finally, I think what we do is we provide incredible facilities for our students to do their research and do their thinking, as well as being comfortable. We have really good accommodation and things like that. And we tend to attract quite a lot of funding. So just last week, I think someone gave Oxford £100 million to develop a new kind of antibiotic resistance lab to try and sort out this problem that we have globally with antibiotic resistant viruses and stuff. So we're constantly building new facilities to join the things that we've already got. So both universities have amazing library facilities. Oxford has the Bodleian Library, which has 13 million books in it, which is the Central University Library. And Cambridge has the same. They have a central library with 13 million books, which I think is remarkable. So yeah, we kind of feel that we're able to provide facilities that will help you study and enjoy yourself. Okay, over to Kathryn.
Thanks, Joe. So because of this international reputation that we've got, and it's fantastic, that we can have these claims about being wonderful universities, but that means that often students can be put off applying to us because there are also a lot of misconceptions out there about the two universities. So I'm going to go through a few of those now, a few of the myths that I certainly believed when I was kind of a 15, 16-year-old who'd heard about the concept of Oxbridge, Oxford and Cambridge. So I'm going to go through a few of those myths that school students often believe, and then the reality of the situation. So one of the myths that I hear quite a lot is that people think Oxford and Cambridge are just for private school students. And if they didn't go to a private school, so a school that you have to pay for, then they're going to come to Oxford or Cambridge and they're going to be one of like 5 people who went to a state school, and they're going to really struggle. Whereas actually the majority of students at Oxford and Cambridge went to state schools like you, because this event here today is for students from state schools. So to give an example of that, at St Catharine's, the percentage of offer holders this year, so who'll be starting in October, is over 83% state schools from our UK offer holders. And I think, Joe, what's the figure at Brasenose? Is it 82% or something?
Yeah, you're 1% behind.
1.4% difference there, quite large. But yeah, at the two universities, at all the colleges, the majority of students are from state school backgrounds. And that's something that's just increasing year on year. Because we're endeavouring to make the two universities as fair as they possibly can be. So please don't be put off thinking that you're going to be one of the only state school students at the universities. Something else that I hear quite a lot is people are really concerned about expenses at Oxford and Cambridge. And obviously, if you Google Oxford, Cambridge, you get all these gorgeous, very old buildings, and it's just kind of in your head that those kind of places are going to cost a lot. But we do work like other universities. You apply for student finance in the exact same way as you would for any other university. So you can get your tuition fee loans from the government, you can get any maintenance loans and maintenance grants that you would do for other universities as well. And then when you actually come to Oxford and Cambridge, we do subsidise our rooms and our food for students. So it's not going to be as expensive as you might think. And also there are lots of bursaries and grants, so that's money that you don't have to pay back, available at Oxford and Cambridge. So a lot of our students find that they're eligible for all sorts of different pots of money that they can use towards things like accommodation and food, but also money that they can use towards things like getting involved in sports that they thought they maybe couldn't afford the equipment for, or buying books that they need for their course, or travel, or any emergency kind of financial crises that come up. There's always going to be support for you from Oxford and Cambridge. So please don't let financial concerns put you off applying to the universities. And this is something that I don't think I believe so much in year 12, but recently when I've been giving talks to school students, I often hear people basically say outright they're not going to apply to Oxford or Cambridge because they think all the students there are just going to spend like all day in the library. And if they come to Oxford or Cambridge, they're not really going to have kind of a studenty experience. They're not going to have fun because they think we maybe don't do anything but study. But that's really not the case at all, and I'll get our students to vouch for that in a second as well, so you don't have to take my word for it. When you come to these two cities, they are just like other university cities. They've got loads of stuff going on. You know, they have got nightlife and cinemas and shopping centres and events and concerts and parties and all that kind of stuff happening within the city. And then they've also got everything that's been organised by the students themselves as well for other students. So each of the universities has got roughly over 800 different societies and clubs, and there are over 80 different sports that you can get involved in as well. So it's really not kind of, you know, just our students spending all the time in the library. If that's what you want to do, that's absolutely fine. But if you are kind of looking to have fun, which most of you will be, then you can absolutely do that at Oxford and Cambridge as well. I think I'd really like to get some of our student helpers to perhaps chip in with their experiences of, did you believe any of these myths when you were thinking about Oxford and Cambridge for the first time? And what is kind of your impression now that you're at Oxford or Cambridge?
I was under the impression that it was a very expensive university to attend, and I was really worried about how to find the money to go there. Especially as a veterinary student, we have to do a certain amount of weeks of working with animals during our degree, which means I can't work outside of work and earn money. And I was really worried about this. And actually, the colleges, because the university is such a rich university, so to speak, they have a lot of money to give to our students to help us. So all you have to do is ask, and there's money all over the place for you to help. I have money to help me travel to my placements for my veterinary degree. I have money to help me pay for my accommodation. There's just so many there's so many funds there to help you get through that you really don't have to worry about it being expensive. And on top of that, it's not that expensive anyway. It's no more expensive than any normal university.
I was definitely under the impression that Oxford students do nothing but study. And so I think I kind of overcompensated for that in my first term as well. So my first term at Oxford, I think I worked way too hard. I spent a lot of time just like studying, and it's kind of because when you first come, it's a really weird feeling that you look at everybody, you're like, everybody's reasonably normal. And they have like other things to do, and they just like, you know, they like what, football or Formula One, or like they do stuff, but the only thing is they're incredibly like passionate and motivated and, you know, clever as well. And it's kind of, if you do spend all that time just studying, then you just end up being less efficient, you end up being burnt out, and you need other things other than like working your degree to do. So that myth was kind of busted, but only when I got to Oxford, I think. Yeah.
I think that's one of the points I'm going to elaborate a bit more on. So I've got some images here that are just examples of the kind of things that you can get involved in at Oxford and Cambridge. So obviously there's over 800 societies and clubs at each one. So there's so much that you can get involved in. But would any of our students like to chip in with kind of some examples of societies or sports or music or activities that they've gotten involved in at Oxford and Cambridge that they're particularly enjoying in their spare time?
So this year I've actually been made president of the Exploration Club, which is kind of niche, and that wasn't actually something that I'd intended to be either, but yeah, that's really fun, and I think kind of leading off of that, you find that at Oxford and Cambridge there are so many societies. There are some very niche ones, and you'll find yourself joining groups that you would have never actually been aware of before you got here, and trying sports, trying foods, trying music, that sort of thing that you probably had never heard of. So the Exploration Society, they help students to go and do expeditions to different parts of the world. We host talks. Cambridge has an equivalent as well called the Cambridge University Expedition Society. And yeah, that's kind of my experience with that. So
So I don't mind chipping as well. So I just to introduce myself as well. I'm Danielle. I study at Katz. I'm studying land economy and I'm in my second year. The societies at Cambridge, if you can think of anything, there's probably a society for it. So I know in my college we have smoothie society, knitting society, kind of everything. But one that's really important to me is the Cambridge ACS, which is the African Caribbean Society. And they have so many different cultural societies depending on your background. They also have a Northern Society. So I'm from Manchester, so I'm one of the Northerners. And it's great just to meet up with people, meet new friends, and just kind of surround yourself by different people that you might not be around in your college or on your course. So I think that's the amazing thing about societies. You just meet so many people from different backgrounds, and it's just a great way to make friends.
Thanks very much. I'm after talking about the fun stuff, I'm going to hand over to Joe to now take on the teaching and learning slides.
But learning is fun, remember, so it's part of the fun. Yeah, so yeah, there is so much to do in your spare time, but we also have these academic degrees that you have to do. I should say, by the way, we did have a student helper who can't make it, called Ava, who's from Carmarthenshire, and if she was here, she would have talked about the Welsh Society in the last slide, which is just this amazing, thriving society of both Oxford and Cambridge that she's part of. So yeah, Welsh students definitely thrive at both universities. Anyway, onto the teaching and learning. So what we do in Oxford and Cambridge is we kind of do the things that other universities do, for sure. So if you're a student at Oxford or Cambridge, you'll have lectures. So those might be an hour long, and you might have 400 other students in a room listening to one academic talk in a big banked lecture theatre, which can be quite interesting. We do seminars, so you might have sometimes like classes of 15 or something. Now, I've already talked about the libraries, so we will expect you to be doing independent study a lot of the time. So that's why we've got all these amazing libraries for you to use, but you can work in your room if you prefer. So you will definitely spend time as well thinking for yourself, and that's a key part of any degree, really. Then if you're doing something like biology, you might do some field work where you get to go and measure a cliff or whatever it is they're doing down there. So I can't remember if Emily, was your field work in the first year? I guess, did you do that, or was it cancelled due to the pandemic? I can't remember what the timeline is.
Yeah, we were supposed to go measure some cliffs in Wales, probably do some other things as well. We were supposed to do some kind of marine biology field work in Wales, and that's kind of a trip that they do every year, but that's been cancelled. That was cancelled, sadly, and even more sadly, the second year field trip has also been cancelled, and that was supposed to be to Borneo. But if you're doing biology in a non-COVID year, you'll go to some cool places.
Yeah, and of course we hope that it'll all be over shortly. So so I hope that all those fun things will be back on. And then we also do labs. So if you're doing a science that requires laboratory work, then we provide these lab spaces, and you might do a couple of labs every couple of weeks. There's a question mark, which I'll get onto in a minute, but I just wondered, can I get a couple of students to talk about their lectures and their labs? So I guess, Lokesh, you must have done some labs pre-COVID. What are they like?
So as a physics and philosophy student, I actually don't do that many. Luckily, I've done a few, and they're all right. Like, they're not my favorite part of the degree, if I'm honest. But yeah, you go for a whole. It's usually a whole day thing, either a 1 or 2 day thing. You go, you have an experiment, you have a kind of like a experiment, what do you call it, to-do list, kind of like work through, write up your results. There are always demonstrators around, kind of like help you along. They're good fun to kind of like meet other physicists as well, because obviously we've talked about colleges and a lot of your friends are from your college, but then in order to meet other like people who do your subject from other colleges, that's a good way to meet them. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thank you very much. And what about, I was wondering, could Aisha comment on her lectures? What are they like for HSPS? They must be quite varied.
Yeah, so in first year, it's really varied because you can do such a range of subjects. For example, I did a politics and international relations focused degree, but I still managed to do archaeology in first year. So you can do a bit of everything and sort of explore lots of subjects. I think we had about like maximum 6 lectures a week, so it's not very lecture heavy. And most of them are about an hour, but I know sociology ones were 2 hours.
Yeah, typical sociology. And so Ellie, you would have been doing some maths lectures, but I guess online. What's it like having these recorded lectures that we've been doing during the pandemic?
It's definitely different, but it's quite easy that you can do them at any point in the day, because normally I think my lectures would be at 9 a.m. So at least I can wake up a bit later and do them at 10. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having lectures in real life when things go back to normal. So it should be good. But yeah, they're all really interesting and really help with the problem sheets and everything.
Yeah, good. You probably have to remember you can't rewind and pause live lectures. Just remember that. Okay, so Jackson, because you do medicine, it's a degree where there's lots of different types of learning. What have you managed to do during the pandemic? What kind of learning have you been doing?
So a little bit like everybody else, with COVID and everything that I've had has been cancelled to a certain extent. So I've had very little in-person lectures, in-person practicals. So I've missed out on cutting apart dead bodies, essentially, because that's something cool that I've heard is really fun when you get a cadaver and the lecturer shows you how every bit of the body works. So I'm yet to do that. I'm yet to do all of those types of things. But what I have been able to do through a computer screen has been really good. The lectures cover such a wide variety of stuff you can't imagine, stuff that seems just like an extended version of A-level biology, except you feel like you're doing the entire biology course in the space of an hour-long lecture. And it's all stuff like that, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Amazing. Jackson is a very enthusiastic person, so I'm glad he showed his enthusiasm. All right, so there's a big question mark, right? And so we need to talk about this question mark. So what that question mark is, if Kathryn moves on to the next slide, is as well as all the other teaching and learning that we do, we also do this special thing at Oxford and Cambridge, which Cambridge calls supervisions and Oxford calls tutorials, but they're actually the same thing. We have these mini teaching sessions where you get an academic, often these are world-leading experts, and normally about 2 students, and that is the size of the class. So it's really intense and really in depth, and you get to ask all the questions that you want to ask, and you get to have conversations with these incredible minds. And you'd have 1 or 2 of those a week normally. I've been doing a lot of them online over the last few months, but we hope to be able to get back to online face-to-face teaching for these soon. So these are really special, and if there is something unique about the way we teach at Oxbridge, it's definitely this. So Kareem, I think you said you're a 3rd year, so you've had loads of face-to-face tutorials presumably. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you think about your supervisions?
So yeah, I'm a 3rd year studying English at Katz, and I think supervisions are really fun, to be honest. So when you have your interview, hopefully if you are given an interview, I think that what's good about it is, although you'll be nervous about like, will I get in, will I not? The interview is sort of quite close to what a supervision will be like. So it's something that you can just enjoy in the moment. And I think what you'll see is hopefully you'll be happy about having this quite rare opportunity to be able to discuss your ideas with an expert in the field and be given a sort of length of time to just sort of working out what you think and being able to use their expertise to sort of refine your ideas in a way that you probably won't have experienced before in a classroom with 30 people and things like that. So I think they're probably my favorite part of the learning experience at Cambridge, I think, because just you're applying presumably because you really like your subject. And so to be able to discuss it with someone is probably the most enjoyable thing, because although there are other parts like sitting in the library and watching lectures that can also be useful to your learning, but this is just, I think, the most unique perhaps that you couldn't do outside of university, and also just because of its novelty is something that I find the most enjoyable.
Brilliant. And then finally, although the first 3 letters are the same, Kazal does engineering, which is probably the exact opposite of English. So Kazal, what do you feel about your supervisions?
Yeah, I think my supervisions are kind of what makes Cambridge special, really. So the way it works for us is that we get given a sort of example sheet, which is kind of like homework problems, which you get at school. And we get given a few of them every week, and then we go over them in the supervision. And it's normally a couple of us and a PhD student, and we just go through our problems and sort of discuss the questions themselves. I think it's really interesting because it's not sort of like the questions which we get given are have kind of real world applications, and they're not sort of your standard problems. They're sort of unusual and a bit difficult, but that's what makes them better, because we can have a discussion about it and have a conversation about it. And I feel like if you're really passionate about your subject, the hour will just fly by, because it's just you talking about, both of you, what you guys love. And maybe if you're a PhD student, you can ask them about their research and what they're doing, and it's just really good to get further in depth about your subject itself.
Marvellous, thanks very much, that was great. Kathryn, do you want to do the next slide?
Absolutely. I'm going to talk a bit about the college system. So obviously we've mentioned a few times, Joe and I work at particular colleges at the two universities, and the kind of concept of the college system can be a bit confusing when you're first looking at Oxford and Cambridge. So we're going to break that down into hopefully the simplest of terms for you. So when we talk about a college in this context, it's quite different to probably the context that you've heard the word college in before. So we're not talking about a place for vocational study. Basically, the two universities are made up of these different colleges. So there are 33 undergraduate colleges at Oxford and 29 undergraduate colleges at Cambridge. And undergraduate basically means people who are coming to do their first degree. So that's what all of you here today will be coming to do at Oxford and Cambridge. So they're made up of different colleges, and each of our students, while being a member of one of the two universities, will also be a member of their college. So we've got a lovely picture there of Brasenose on the left and the picture of Katz on the right, and those are just two of the colleges within the two cities of all these kind of old beautiful buildings, and with a few modern buildings in there as well. And when you choose Oxford or Cambridge, you can also put down a preference for the college that you would like to go to. You can make an open application if you can't decide on the college, but you can have a bit of choice if you would like to. And at each of these colleges, there's usually between 300 and 500 students. So it's quite nice, because it means instead of coming to the university and suddenly being within all the thousands of students that are there, you can be within your college community a lot of the time. And I'll chat a bit more in a moment about the kind of things that you can find within a college. So each of our students here today is a member of their college and the university, and whatever college you go to, I'm sure all students will say that their college is the best college. And there's no bad college at Oxford and Cambridge. They're all wonderful places to study, and you can study a variety of subjects at each college. So I know we've had a few questions in the Q&A box coming in saying which will be the best college to choose for my subject. But you really shouldn't make your college decision based on what you think will be best for that subject. Sometimes there are misconceptions bandied about on the internet, or sometimes even by teachers who perhaps think that they heard 50 years ago that one college was better for a certain subject than another college. But actually, you've got the same chances of getting in any college, and you're going to get the same teaching experience essentially at any of the colleges. So even though on the outside these buildings can look a bit intimidating, as you can see by these kind of old-fashioned Harry Potter-esque buildings on the screen, inside the colleges there's all sorts on offer, and it's where you're going to end up having kind of your community, and in a really cheesy way, your kind of big family when you come to Oxford or Cambridge. So it's where you're going to kind of have your study spaces, your social spaces, your shared kitchens, a dining room, a cafe, a bar, computer rooms, libraries. There'll be a student committee at each one of the colleges. There'll be all sorts of societies and clubs that are specifically for people at your college. And it's also where the small teaching groups mainly take place. So when Joe was chatting before about the supervisions and the tutorials, those will typically take place within your college, or you might go elsewhere if you're studying a very niche subject and your academic for that subject just happens to be another college. You'll go there for your 1 hour supervision or tutorial. Everything else, all the lectures in your subject specific library and your seminars, they'll take place at the department, so that your subject doesn't influence your college choice at all. So enough from me on colleges. I think it'd be really nice to hear from some people who are currently members of one of the two colleges that we've got represented here today. Perhaps I could ask two of you to chip in with what you like about the college system, or what you particularly like about the college that you go to.
Yeah, so I have to start off by saying that I chose to apply to Catz because I have 4 cats and I really like the name. So that was my main deciding factor. So it really doesn't matter which college you apply to, so long as you think it fits you. One of my favourite things about the college system is that you're not just stuck with your course mates. I'm not just stuck with 60 vets every single day and then go and live with them at the end of the day. And I have such a variety of friends from all over the university because of this college system, and there's a real family feel about it, that you have your college friends and your course friends, and then yeah, it's got a real family feel about having the colleges, and it gives you so much opportunity to meet people all over the city rather than just your few people you live with.
I can go for this question. Brasenose is clearly the best college in Oxford from my experience, but to be fair, I've got a very narrow experience because I've only been here in COVID and we're not allowed to really go into any other colleges. So I've only really experienced Brasenose, but what I've experienced at Brasenose and what I've experienced from other people talking about Brasenose and talking about their own colleges, from the few people I do know from other colleges, is that everyone's so passionate about them. Everyone loves them. They're like a really big extended family, and like every family, and like I was just saying, it's really nice being in there with a mixture of people that you'd never meet otherwise. So there's people from courses so completely different to you, and I found even in my very limited experience, I found myself talking. Because I know I'm a medic, but I talk to English students about books. I'll talk to philosophy students about great questions nobody can answer. And we're all mixed in together and we're all having these great chats. And you've got these amazing people that you'd never otherwise meet at any other university. And they're all so normal, and it's brilliant. And it's like this one big family where everyone does everything for each other. And it's great. And I just can't wait for the day that we can get back on the football pitch and cheer for the black and gold.
Thanks very much. I think I'm going to get Jackson to give all our presentations from now on because you make everything sound great. I love that. So I've chatted a bit about the colleges. I think we'll probably stop there with the college chat and move on to the next slide, so we've got more time to answer your questions at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Joe again.
Just that we have this Q&A box which has never been stuffed more full of questions, and although we won't be able to answer all of them, and I'm sure that some of them we're answering as we go along. I better be brief so we can spend some Q&A time at the end. So yeah, with the degree courses, you might have already chosen your degree, in which case you're already completely sure about what you're doing, but you might not. And so it's probably worth knowing that Oxford and Cambridge, we do a broad spread of arts, humanities, social sciences. Some degrees we do the same, so we both do English, history, classics, etc. But they'll still be different. They're called the same, but they'll have different like modules and things. So you can check that out online. Probably the biggest difference, though, between the two universities is the way we do science. So at Oxford, we do individual sciences like chemistry, physics, biology, and so on. And so we split them up into those. Whereas at Cambridge, they do natural sciences, which is this broad degree where you take the single science degree and you can mix and match and do different bits of science, as well as concentrating on science particular sciences if you want to. So that's probably the main difference in terms of the way we do science. But other than that, please just have a look at our website and you can see the courses that are available. Okay, is it the next slide for me, Kathryn? Now. Oh yeah, so just a very brief overview of what we do with the admissions process. Now, loads of people get really scared about Oxbridge admissions and they think it's going to be some kind of torture thing where we really do make you feel small and little, and no one gets a place. Actually, the statistics are pretty good. We have about 6 applicants, 5.5 to 6 applicants per place. So my first message really is, don't be scared of this. You can do this. You can apply. All these guys are all on the panel. They all applied successfully, and you can do the same. And don't think that the statistics are really stacked against you, because actually we're not as competitive as some of the other Russell Group universities. Then, anyway, the kind of things we do, we try and do a holistic application. So we try and look at all the different bits of you and try and judge whether we think you thrive and flourish at Oxbridge. That's genuinely our objective. So we look at your teacher's reference on your UCAS form. We look at your personal statements. and check that you're passionate about your course. We look at your academic record, so we look at GCSEs, for instance, and your A-level predictions. We don't actually have a GCSE cutoff point, so you can apply with whatever GCSEs you've got. Now, it is true that most of our applicants have got pretty good GCSEs, but by no means all. So if you didn't do so well, you can still apply. We look at contextual data, so we look at you compared to your school. So are you outperforming your school? For instance, that's quite interesting for us to know. So we do that, but then probably the big bits that we do are the admissions tests or assessments, and then interviews. So we get you to do an assessment normally in your school in early November, and a lot of these guys would have done an assessment or a test of some kind. And we just give you some new material to look at. So they're challenging, but they're interesting. Then we also interview you. And that's probably the thing that people are most worried about, because they're thinking of Tim Berners-Lee or something. And they're thinking, well, if that guy interviews me, how can I possibly have anything to say? But actually, the interviews are much more like academic discussions, where the tutors will say, right, here's something interesting, let's talk about it. This year, they were all online, and it remains to be seen whether we're doing them online, I think, this winter or not. But the interviews, don't be intimidated. Don't be scared by them. Don't not apply because you don't like the idea of interviews. Actually, they're quite interesting, and it's a it's a life experience. Okay, so that's my brief whistle-stop tour of admissions, and I'm sure we'll get a couple of questions about that later.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about what we're actually looking for when we look at those different pieces of information that you've sent us. So we're looking for academic ability. So I know we've got a lot of questions about that in the Q&A, and we'll chat a bit about that later to do with GCSEs especially. But we're looking for academic ability. We're looking for your potential to succeed at Oxford and Cambridge. So obviously we have this slightly different way of teaching, these small teaching groups. We want people who are really intellectually curious, and they're going to do well when they come to Oxford and Cambridge. It sounds quite obvious, but we need you to meet the course requirements. So you can have a little look on the Oxford and Cambridge web pages for each subject, and it will tell you exactly which subjects you need, and also any grade requirements that we have. So it will tell you our typical offers for that subject. So it's really worth having a look. Something like computer science, for example, at Cambridge, you'll need maths A-level or equivalent qualification in order to apply for that. But then there are subjects like geography, where you don't actually need to have geography at A-level in order to study it at Cambridge. So even if you think you're limited by your A-level choices, it's really worth having a look at our two websites to see the courses that are there and actually check the entrance requirements. So you could study law even if you haven't done law at A-level, for example, which is what a lot of people don't know, so they don't ever consider applying to it, but that's something that you might like to apply to. And then last on this list, which is really important, is we want people who've got genuine subject interest. So they've demonstrated a passion for their subject and that they're really well suited to the course that they're applying for. This is going to be something that you're going to be studying for 3, 4, or maybe even 6 years, depending on the course. So it has to be something that you're passionate about, and not just something that maybe you felt pressure from parents or guardians or teachers or whoever else to apply to. It's got to be what you're really passionate for. And we're going to be able to see in those steps that Joe was talking about, the interview, the personal statements, different aspects, we're going to be able to tell whether you're genuinely interested in that course and if you're well suited for it. And that's something I'm going to chat a bit more about. We've also had a lot of questions in the Q&A box about super-curricular activities and what are some good super-curricular activities that you can do. So for any of you who haven't come across the term super-curricular before, I'll just distinguish between super-curricular activities and extracurricular activities. So extracurricular activities are things like being on a football team, playing grade 3 recorder, things that aren't linked to your subject that you want to apply for at university, unless of course you want to apply to music, in which case recorder stuff will be great. That's extracurricular stuff, and that's not what we look for at Oxford and Cambridge. That's one of the myths. We don't need you to be captain of the squash team and on your student council and all these different things. We don't need all of that extracurricular experience. But what we do really look for is to see that you've engaged in supercurricular activities. And that's where you've done something to do with your subject roughly, but outside of the school curriculum. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples on this next slide. That might be listening to university podcasts through iTunes U in kind of subject areas that you're interested in. It might be that you want to apply for psychology, but you don't actually do it at A level, and you find really interesting psychology talks on TED Talks. It could be that you find some free courses that you can do on Future Learn within your subject, and you can do that. You might want to apply for biology and you like watching The Blue Planet. There's all sorts of different things that you can do, and it doesn't just have to be reading. If you do want to read a course, that's fantastic, but it also doesn't have to be whole books. It could be a really interesting chapter on a topic you're interested in from one book that then leads you to go and have a little look into that subject online and get some more information. It might lead you to a podcast that you want to listen to. It's all about hopefully demonstrating your interest, but also things that you would really like to do anyway, because this is a course that you're really interested in and the subject that you're really interested in. So if you're having a go at these super-curricular activities and you're finding actually you're not enjoying it, it's not very interesting to you, then that's really a good sign of, is that a course that you actually want to apply for at university? Because hopefully these super-curricular activities will be in some way interesting and fun and enlightening for you as well. I've put 4 really great key links on there that you can have a look at, so feel free to print screen if you'd like to look at this later, but as I said before, I'll circulate the PowerPoint afterwards to attendees. But these are really useful links for just getting some inspiration to some super-curricular activities that you can do. To address on this note some of the questions that we've also had in the Q&A about kind of, is this valued as a super-curricular activity and is this good enough? Please do the things that you're interested in. Don't pick something because you think, oh, Oxford are going to really be impressed if I read this book. Don't do that for those reasons. Read a chapter of a book because you're really passionate about that subject, or listen to a podcast because it's something you're interested in, not because you think it's something that we're looking for. Because when we discuss these with you in an interview, or if you come to Cambridge Oxford, we want you to have explored the kind of areas that you're passionate about, not just something that you thought we were looking for. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Joe again to take you through our application timeline.
Yeah, just again briefly, because we want to love to get the students talking after this. So just briefly, just what you're facing is, this is the basic timeline. So first thing is that we tend to ask, well, we ask for applicants to hand in their application on UCAS earlier than some other universities. So it's a mid-October deadline. Then for Cambridge, there's this extra little form to fill in late October, which is no big deal, but it's worth remembering that. Then in early November, that's when we ask you to do your tests. And for some courses like English and languages, to submit some written work, but that's just work you've done at school. Then we also have interviews in December. Now this year they were online, but we're not sure what will be happening in the near future. Sorry, last winter they were online. Not sure what they'll be like this winter. And then what happens is in January we'll let you know the outcome. And for Oxford that tends to be yes or no, but for Cambridge they do this yes, no, or pool thing where you might get put in the pool. Which means that they might be able to find space for you a bit later on in February or something. So that's just like a footnote, really. Yeah, and every year we have people who apply who are brilliant, but we don't quite have space for them. So they go off and flourish and have a brilliant time at other universities. So, you know, they hopefully don't take it too badly. But then, you know, most of our students are surprised when they get their offer and then they come and have a great time. So that's the basic timeline, just so you know. But, you know, there's plenty of information online about that. So we can move on to answering some more questions now, I think.
Lovely. I know we went through that quite quickly, but like we said, we'll give you a copy of the recording afterwards so you can go back to that, print it out, put it on your wall, do what you need to do. So to round off what we've been talking about today, really think about the subject that you want to be studying at whichever university that's going to be. If you're doing super-curricular activities, do them because you enjoy them and because it's helping you to explore your course, and don't do it because you think you're just doing some kind of tick list for Oxford and Cambridge. And also keep an eye out for the events that are coming up this year. Now that a lot of things are virtual, there's more events that you can get involved in so easily, more than ever before. So I put some different websites on there so that you can keep in touch with me and Joe if you've got any questions, but also that you can see the events that we're doing throughout the year. So there'll be more subject specific stuff over the open day period in July, and all sorts of different opportunities to find out more. But now we're going to move on to answering a lot of your questions. And we might overrun, I imagine, to make sure that we've answered some of the key questions that we've had coming in. The most popular questions we've had are to do with the weight that we put on GCSE grades, and how we're going to take GCSE grades into account. I'm going to be mean and hand over to Joe to answer this question, because I know he's always great at chatting about GCSE grades and how we look at them, and is the kind of the minimum amount of A's and A stars that you need to have had in order to apply.
GCSEs are important to us because if you think about it, it's the only set of qualifications you've completed in normal times before you apply. And yeah, most of our students have pretty good GCSEs, but not everybody. Not everybody has these stellar GCSEs by any means, and we still want you to apply. We don't have a particular cutoff point, so don't be afraid to apply if you don't have these perfect GCSEs. Most people don't. Now we've got this problem with the prediction right this year, so that some GCSEs are being for some year groups are being predicted because of the pandemic. But just like the A levels, we'll be taking those as we'll trust your teachers on the predictions. And I think it remains to be seen like exactly how we'll use GCSEs going forward because of the pandemic. But I just think that we look at our applicants so holistically. We just look at all the measures that we can. It will be quite fluid, and we'll just see how it pans out. But we'll do the very best to assess you as fairly as possible. That's the main thing.
Thanks. Let's just have a look. So many great questions coming in. I think it's really interesting, the question that we've gotten asked a lot, which is how can I make my Oxbridge application stand out, and kind of what can I write in my personal statement that's going to stand out. And so I'll kind of repeat a bit what I said about with super-curriculars. Don't do things because you think it's what we're looking for. We're not looking for someone to be, the most unique applicant in the world in order for them to have a chance of getting in. We're looking for regular students who are really passionate about their subject, that have shown their interest outside of school and within their school course, and are willing to chat about that and ask more questions and want to come and learn at university. So don't think, oh, I have to pick a book that no one else has ever spoken about, or I can't possibly watch a documentary that other people have watched. If that's what interests you and it's a topic that you're interested in, then please do check it out, and don't think that you need to be a complete unique applicant. We have plenty of people applying to us, so it's obviously going to happen where some people have read the same book as other people, and that's absolutely fine. A few questions about people doing qualifications that aren't A levels. That's absolutely fine, even though we mainly said A levels throughout this talk. If you're doing IB or Scottish Highs or other qualifications to A levels and GCSEs, that's absolutely fine. We both put on our websites how we take those into account. We've got lots of questions about personal statements, about how to kind of start writing personal statements. Obviously, you've got plenty of time before you have to think about doing that, but perhaps I can ask one of our arts humanities students and one of our sciences students to kind of give some tips on in year 12 when they had to start writing a personal statement, how they went about doing that, how you kind of got over your writer's block a bit too.
I would say the thing I really focused on is showing why I had interest for my subject. So I do human, social and political sciences, and I think they probably have a lot of people who might say like focus on being on their debate team in school or things like that, but I think they kind of want to see that you're interested in content that might be on the course, in my experience. So I wrote a lot about like different podcasts I'd listened to, or like books that inspired different ideas, and I think most of my personal statement was actually just about different things I wanted to explore in the course. And I think that's not really a traditional way to write it, but only like the very end was really about like extracurriculars and things, and I left that for like a very small paragraph. So I think showing that you're teachable and showing that you have a passion for your subject beyond just like the name of the subject or what you've done in school is important, and like all the wider reading and like what inspires you.
I think I should answer that pretty well, so I don't think there's anything particular to add to that. We've got a question about, will we be having open days this year? We probably won't be having them in person due to COVID unless there is some kind of miracle. However, I think it would be great if a few of our students could chat about how they went about picking a college, or how they went about choosing that they were going to go to Oxford or Cambridge if they weren't able to visit them in person. Or if you can imagine that situation of not being able to go in person, how do you think you'll be able to make those decisions? Danielle, I think I'm going to pick on you with this one, because if I remember correctly, you maybe didn't go to an in-person open day.
Yeah, so I'm a second year, so it was before COVID when I was applying, but I still didn't have the opportunity to come down to Cambridge and visit any of the colleges. So I relied a lot on kind of online blogs and different websites. So for me, I think it was on the student room. They had a really great kind of pros and cons comparison list of the different Cambridge colleges. So I looked a lot at blogs, at different pictures, and also I think it depends, like if you're a lazy person, so I can be quite lazy, and St Catharine's College is really close to my apartment, about a 1 minute, 2 minute walk. And so it's just looking at different factors that are important to you. So some colleges you can have kind of free laundry, some colleges have swimming pools, and it's just kind of looking at different things that are important to you. And for me, it was the proximity, it was close to the into the town, and I think you're not at a disadvantage if you do have to kind of look at colleges online, because I still managed to do it and pick a college that I absolutely love. And there is a lot of resources out there just to kind of get a feel for all of the colleges.
We've had a few questions about work experience, and obviously work experience has typically been a requirement for medicine at Oxford or Cambridge or many of the universities. And will that still be a requirement this year? So last year we did take it into account with COVID and it wasn't a requirement. And obviously this year it's looking very much the same, like work experience in person isn't going to be possible, and things are quite tricky. So we do take that into account. So please don't think you're going to be disadvantaged for not being able to get work experience in a hospital or a care setting at the moment, because we know that that's pretty much impossible at this stage. Somebody has asked, how diverse are Oxford and Cambridge? So I guess that can be interpreted in a number of different ways, but would any of our students like to chip in on the diversity at Oxford and Cambridge?
I don't mind chipping in on this. So in my college, I'm on the JCR, which is kind of like the student council type thing for the college. And we have different liberation officers. So I'm the representative from people of BAME backgrounds. We have an LGBTQ+ officer. We have a disabilities officer, a women's and non-binary officer. And I think almost all colleges have that as well. And it basically just means that we're looking out for all different types of diversity in the college. When colleges are making decisions, they also try to reach out to us to make sure they're being inclusive. And also, if we think more about kind of racial diversity, there's a lot of different kind of cultural societies, like I mentioned earlier, that you can get involved in. So even if it may not be the most ethnically diverse place all of the time, there's different spaces that you can go into where you can be around people from similar backgrounds to yourself. And I think it's also relative as well to where you come from beforehand. So like different areas of London may be really diverse, and then when you come here it's not as much. Or if you're like me, in Manchester, I come to an area that's not that diverse, and so coming here wasn't too different, but even more so I had more exposure to diversity here. Yes, I think that's how I'll summarise it.
Thanks very much, Danielle. That was a great answer. We've had a few questions about taking 4 A-levels, and will it be an advantage to take 4 A-levels or 3 A-levels? Taking the 4th A-level is really down to you. So all our typical offers at Oxford and Cambridge are for 3 A-levels. So we're not going to reduce an offer because you're taking 4. If you want to take 4 because the 4th subject is one that you really don't want to drop because you absolutely love it, or you think you want to explore that area further in future, and then that's great, and keep on that 4th A level, but don't keep on a 4th A level because you think Oxford and Cambridge are going to view your application better because of it, because we won't assess it any differently. And it's maybe worth thinking about, if you're taking 4 A levels, will you be a bit stretched and will your grades then be slightly lower? And if you think that's the case, then look after your own workload and your own mental health, and maybe consider doing 3. Perhaps that's something you can chat to teachers and guardians and parents about and stuff like that to get a second opinion on. But please don't keep a 4th A level just because you think Oxford and Cambridge are going to need a 4th A level. We've got a few questions about how much preparation should you do for any assessments that you have to sit. So obviously that's a long way off now, but I know that students at Year 12 are already worrying about things so far in advance. Perhaps if we could get, I think Jackson, I think you're our only medic on the call today, if I could perhaps say how much preparation you did for the BMAT, and then it might be slightly different for some of the arts and humanities students. Maybe you can chip in with how much you prepared in advance before the assessments, and maybe how far, at what stage in Year 12 or Year 13 you started even thinking about the admissions assessments.
I think I've answered a couple of questions in the chat boxes a minute ago about these kind of things. So if you want some more developed points where I'm much more sensible and I'm typing it out and thinking about it, that's probably the best place to look. But I'll try and give you a brief overview of what I've been saying. You talked about, Kathryn just mentioned, like when you started applying. I only wanted to start, I only started thinking about doing medicine at all at this point in Year 12. So it was like January, February, I thought, actually, maybe I could be a doctor. Because before that, I had all these preconceptions of doctors, of these geniuses, that I could never be that person. I could never go to Oxford. I could never go to Cambridge, whatever. I couldn't even be a doctor. And then here I am. So clearly I did something right from this point. So really, really don't worry about preparing really soon or anything. You've got so much time. It's months and months away before you even have to probably think about it. But if you're thinking about it now, that's really good. You've already started in a better place than I did. With the BMAT, it's funny for us as medical students. If you've looked into medicine much, you'll know that unlike all the other subjects here, we don't just do interviews and admissions tests for Oxford or Cambridge. We do admissions tests and interviews for any uni that we go to. So you really can't let those other unis slip as well. When you're revising for the BMAT, you'll also be doing the UCAT, or if you're lucky enough to get an interview for Oxbridge, you might also have an interview for another university at a similar time. And it's balancing all of that is really difficult. It's one of the few subjects that also has that early application date. But alongside that, one of the brilliant things with medicine is that actually medicine at Oxbridge is no different really to medicine anywhere else. It's different. It's no better. I think it's no harder. It's the same subject. You come out of it with the same qualification, and I think that's one of the things that's really important from my perspective to hold on to, is that medicine here is just a little bit different. It's no better or no worse. It's all about what you want, and not getting into medicine here doesn't mean you're going to be a worse or better doctor. There's plenty of doctors that are much better than the doctors that Oxford produces that go to other unis. It's entirely up to you and what you prefer and what you're better at. So I'm going completely off topic again. I'm sorry, I'm rubbish at this. But I think with the BMAT, what I've been saying in my answers is you can't revise for it. You can't learn the science. There's a science section. It's all GCSE science. You'll have done it all. It's not about what you know. It's all about the skills. It's all about how you think and how you so the only thing you can really do is practice. It's not a revision paper. You've got to practice. So all I did was at the end of the summer, I think I had some mocks in September. I did my mocks, and once I finished my mocks, and while I was revising for my mocks, I just did practice papers for the BMAT. And over about an 8-week period, probably, up until October, when the end of October, when the BMAT was, I just did loads and loads of practice papers. I just did every single practice paper I could find. I started with just doing the questions to get used to the questions, and I finished by doing them in the time conditions. And there's a funny little essay bit on the end, which isn't that great for everyone. I did English, so that was my favourite part of the paper. But for a lot of the medics that are here with me, they hated that part, but it's fine. It's a little essay. It's fine. You get a lot of time, and you don't have to write that much. It's not an English essay. You don't have to use quotes or anything. You just write about some sciencey thing that you're quite interested in. But I'll stop talking so someone else can have a turn. But yeah, don't worry about it too much. Just practice. Just practice so you're comfortable that when you go into that BMAT, you're not panicking, you're not worried. You just know that you can do this because you can.
Thanks, Jackson. I saw someone put in the Q&A, I wish I could be as enthusiastic as Jackson, and I certainly agree with that. Do any of the students who applied for an arts or humanities course where you had to sit an assessment, do you want to chat about kind of when you first started thinking about doing any preparation for that?
Hi, so a few questions about ELAT, and I would say really don't worry about it too much. So I started thinking about how I should prepare just in the summer between year 12 and 13, because my teachers were sort of suggesting to me, just have it in the back of your mind, maybe look at a past paper, because you can find them on Cambridge and Oxford websites. For each subject, they'll have links to ELAT because they'll mention that it's something you do. And so all I did for preparation was look at past papers, and I only actually did one of them and gave that one to my English teacher to look at. And I also looked at, and there's some exemplar answers where they have about 3 different answers and the marks they got, with the examiners just doing a few notes about why certain answers got certain marks. And that was all I did. I would say that maybe, contrary to sort of maybe medicine, what Jackson's just explained, I really wouldn't do as many as you can. I mean, it's obviously fine to do like 10 practice papers if you'd like to, but I would say that might be just putting unnecessary pressure on yourself, because the whole sort of nature of the exam, for English at least, they really try and make it so that you don't need extra preparation. You don't need any context, any historical knowledge, any knowledge of literary critics or anything. You're really just responding to what's on the exam. So I would say at least look at the paper just so you're not freaked out by the structure of it or anything like that, or how much time you have, and maybe do one practice paper just because it can make you feel like, oh, well, it's not like the craziest thing in the world, it's something you can do, and do more if you want to, but don't feel pressure to do loads.
Thanks very much, Kathryn. We've had a few questions about which college is easier to get into than others, which of the universities is easier to get into others. We'd really say to pick Oxford or Cambridge based on your preference, not about whether you think one's going to be easier to get into or not. We've got pretty similar acceptance rates across the board, and our application process is very similar, and we look for the same things. So it's pretty standard that you'll stand the same chance at either of the universities. In terms of colleges, Joe, you mentioned before about the pooling system, but do you want to maybe go into a bit more detail so people understand that they do have the same chance at any college?
Yeah, it's something that people worry about a lot, but I look at the stats, and it's really what happens is you apply to the university and you're putting down a college preference. That's basically how you need to think about it. But then we do spread applications around colleges a lot. So 1/3 of all successful applicants made an offer by a college they didn't put down as their preference. So all that means that behind the scenes, we're trying to make it so the best people get in regardless of college choice. So don't worry about strategic college choice. Don't be saying, oh, I'm going to apply to this college because I don't think many people will apply for that course. You just can't think like that. The best people will get in regardless of college choice. And one last myth to explode is that we do actually accept people from the same school in the same college. So you don't have to spread yourself out because you've got other people in your school applying. You can apply to the same college if you want to. So don't feel like you don't need to. We've got, starting for English in October at Brasenose, 2 people from the same school. So that's the same college and the same course. So yeah, you don't need to worry about spreading yourself out in that way.
Thanks, Joe. Sorry, I was typing the answer to a question. I think we have already overrun, but I know we've got lots of questions. If you've got anything really specific about your own situation in terms of combinations of A-levels, if you're really worried about, you can email Joe and I. I've put our email addresses up before, and you've also got it through the Zoom webinar invite I sent. Bear in mind that we might not get back to you straight away because there are a lot of people attending. So if we get hundreds of emails, there might be a slight delayed response. For people asking about really specific courses and what the entry requirements are, or which courses we do at Oxford and Cambridge, those are quite easy to find on our website. So do take a look at the 2 big lists of all the different courses on offer on our website or on our online prospectuses. I think we'll bring it to a close gradually, but I'd love to pick on our students first, and perhaps alphabetically, so that's going to be difficult for Zal and Kareem at the end, I think, and Lokesh to say something that you're really enjoying about university. So obviously all the students here today are in year 12 or equivalent, and university seems quite a while away, but something that you're enjoying about university, whether that's specific to Oxford or Cambridge, or your college or your course or not. Who goes first? Aisha, sorry, that means you have to go first with that at short notice.
Yeah, so I'll split it into like academically and socially. So academically, I'm really enjoying that I can get in touch with so many people who specialize in things I'm really interested in and like do pioneering work in like those fields. And like, for example, my dissertation supervisor, I've read quite a bit of her work and I'm really passionate about her work. So it's really cool, like the kinds of supervisors and people you can get in touch with. And socially, it can be kind of the same with friends. Like you meet so many interesting people who I think really have an enthusiasm for their degrees, and you get such a wide range of perspectives on the world that's a really cool thing to have socially.
I think, am I next? I think quite similarly, what I love the most about being at Cambridge is just the people that I've met. I think I went in kind of going in with a thought like, oh, there's going to be so many people from private schools, I might not fit in, it might not be the place for me. But then when I actually got there, I realized that it genuinely was just a myth, and everyone is just so lovely. You meet people from so many different backgrounds. I made such amazing friends that I might have not met otherwise. And I think that's something that's really special about this place. But also on the academic side, what I think's amazing is I could be reading an academic paper and I'll look at who's written it, and then it would be my supervisor who's written it, or kind of my director of studies or something. And the fact that you can be in contact with such incredible people in their field is something that I think is really great.
I think I'm next. I just absolutely love Brasenose in itself. I feel like it's such an amazing community and I feel so loved, and it's just so nice to be surrounded by such intelligent people who are so kind and caring. And so that's probably my favorite thing about being here, in terms of it's just amazing to have such varied opinions and to have like fascinating discussions over dinner. Which is lovely. And then academically, I absolutely love the course. I think it's really interesting, and it's great to feel constantly stretched. Like I never feel that I'm finding anything easy, which is a good thing because it always means I'm learning, which I absolutely love. And yeah.
So for me, it's just the sheer number of opportunities that you have here, both socially and academically. There's always something going on. You're always busy doing something, whether that's, again, social or academic. So I come from kind of near Newcastle, notorious party city. And so I did think that the social side of Oxford would be a bit like, not dead, but like a bit kind of more slow compared to at home. And it's really not. I actually much prefer my social kind of side in Oxford. Also, I'm part of the Exploration Society, and just kind of with societies in general. You meet so many people who have done so many amazing things that you can only kind of have imagined yourself doing, and so it makes things feel quite accessible. So yeah, you just have so many opportunities and they're right at your feet, and so yeah, that's my favorite thing.
I think I'm next. I think if you've noticed anything from the first few people talking, it's that there's a bit of a theme, and that we all seem to absolutely love this place, and we all love the people that we've met here. We all love each other, and it's brilliant. And that's the same for me. As you probably also guessed from how I'm talking, I quite like talking. I quite like talking. I quite like listening. I like conversations, and that is the best thing about this place, is the conversations you have, both academically and both non-academically. I think I've learned equally as much from my tutors as I've learned from the friends that I've made here. I come from Cornwall, as the flag would suggest. So my own little corner of the world where everything's quite similar and quite safe. And then you come up here and there's all these people from all over the world, never mind all over the country, people from as far away as near Newcastle. And it's another world for me. And it's been really valuable. It's been really brilliant. So academically, I think one of the thing that I love the most is the tutorials. Absolutely, because I mean, I only applied to Brasenose. No offense, Joe, but I only applied to Brasenose because I met the tutor on the open day, and I was like, I love this man so much. I really want to spend as much time with this man as possible, and now he's my tutor. Don't tell him I said that. Yeah, it's just brilliant to just sit and talk to him. And my other tutor is currently like working on the COVID vaccine stuff, and that's just really weirdly cool because we just finished our tutorial 20 minutes early so he can talk about all the research he's doing, because that's all we really came for. It's brilliant. It's so good. It's such a unique experience, Oxbridge. It's just an opportunity that I think everybody should try and take. If you can, because there's so many things in this world that tell you that you shouldn't, and they tell you this for these geniuses and these people that are so different to you, but it's really not. It's just everyone here is just different in their own way. They're just passionate about their subject. So if you're passionate about something, just have a go, please.
I would say that, sort of seconding what everyone else has said, the people are really nice. It's a pleasant surprise too, because you can have these kind of false expectations of sort of snobbery and things that are built up by what people say. I'd also say that, well, right now, just because I'm in my third year, the chance to study the things that I want to study and having quite a lot of choice has made things really enjoyable. So that's what I'm appreciating right now.
I think for me personally, there's kind of like never a dull or boring day. There's always something to do. Like academically, there's sort of different areas to explore, different passions. Socially, your friends are just around the corner, so it's easy to hang out with them. There's always some random sort of Cambridge sort of event going on, which is great. And it's just, there's always something doing. It's always something different. So it's great to explore and to grow as a person.
It's been so long, I've kind of forgotten what the question was. I think it was like favorite thing or something like that. You've heard all before, but it genuinely is the people at Brasenose. We've talked a bit about like the JCR, which is kind of like, well, it's kind of like school council, but college, university type thing. And they're holding also, even though like it's the pandemic and some of us at home, they're holding all sorts of like online events, like quizzes and all that kind of stuff. There's like a really good like community feel. I'm a fourth year, so I'm quite old. I sometimes get involved, but not really. I just like, you know, having a video chat with my friends every other day, just like, and it sounds cheesy, but I know like after these 4 years I've made friends for life from, again, like all over the country, all over the world, studying all sorts of different things. At school, like I had really good friends at school, but it's also like, you know, you're all from the same area, you're all quite similar, or you can be, and you know, if you ever felt at school that like, not that you didn't fit in, but that, you know, you might, or if you come to university worrying that you might not find friends, university is a massive place. College, you know, there's such a diverse mix of people studying all sorts of different things, and the university as well, all different societies. You will find people who just click with you, and they might not be the people that you expect as well. So yeah, my favorite thing is just everybody I've met and the friendships I've made.
So I think academically for me, my favourite thing is the fact that I'm doing a subject I love. I no longer have to do geography or English or maths. I'm doing something that I love, and there's no better place to do it than Oxbridge, because they really are at the top of pretty much any subject. I think aside from academically, there's something about going for a walk around Cambridge, which happens quite a lot with lockdown. That's now part of my social life. And you walk around and you see a building where the structure of DNA was discovered, and then you walk past a room where you used to have lectures, and you walk past your friend's bedroom and it's right next to another building where something else famous was discovered, and it's a really special place.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think Joe will agree, you've all been fantastic ambassadors, and thank you to all of our students from state schools across the UK who've joined us today. You've asked so many wonderful questions, and hopefully we've been able to answer nearly 200 of them that I can see from our Q&A box in this time. Please don't hesitate to keep in touch with me or Joe if you've got any further questions, and we're always happy to answer questions. So our email inboxes are open. You can check out our 2 college websites for events and stuff that are coming up in the future, and on our college's social media we're always posting about the different exciting things that we're doing that you can get involved in. Thank you so much for attending. Joe, I don't know if you want to chip in to say something too. I realise I've talked quite a lot.
I was going to steal your line, Kathryn, and just say I want to be a student again, having heard of all these amazing experiences that everyone's having. So no, it's been brilliant, and thanks so much everyone for joining in. It's been great. It's snowing outside, so things are looking up.
Lovely. Thanks so much for joining on a Saturday late morning. We hope you all have a lovely weekend. Thanks everyone. Bye.